Thank you. Question 7, Jenny Marra.
To ask the First Minister what the Scottish Government's position is on whether puberty-blocking drugs should continue to be administered to children in Scotland.
First Minister.
Well, I think decisions on treatment pathways are best made by clinicians in consultation with patients following all of the appropriate guidelines. I don't think it is the role of the Scottish Government to intervene in such decisions. Young people can only be considered for puberty blockers after thorough psychological and endocrine assessment as per the clinical guidelines, and anyone who commences puberty blockers continues to receive regular psychological review and support appointments.
Jenny Marra.
It's interesting that the First Minister doesn't think that the democratic process and the courts can overrule medical opinion, because that's exactly what happened in the English High Court last week. Presiding Officer, let me say that I support the right and medical support for every child to live their best lives. But the judgment in the English High Court last week was very specifically on children's capacity to consent. Law and society does not deem that children have capacity to consent to sex, to marriage, and the High Court said last week that neither do they have the capacity to consent to life-altering, fertility-changing drugs until they are 16. But we know that NHS Scotland continues to give these drugs in the Sandyford Clinic in Glasgow to children as young as 11. With her legal background, can the First Minister tell me if she agrees that children do lack the legal capacity to give informed consent to these drugs? And if she does agree with that, will she instruct, with her power, the Scottish NHS to stop giving these drugs to our children?
First Minister.
I don't think it would be appropriate for me to comment on court action or court decisions that occurred in England. The ruling last week from the High Court has, as a matter of fact, this is not a matter of opinion, has no formal status in Scotland. In the case of children and adolescents in Scotland, the Young People's Service at Sandyford works within the existing guidelines. There are guidelines on the treatment of young people that I referred to in my initial answer. I think decisions on the type of treatment are for clinicians to make. Jenny Marra refers to my legal background. I have no clinical or medical background, and I think it's important that these are matters for clinicians. And if this Parliament wants to look at these issues in a policy sense, of course it is always open to the Parliament to do so.